Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something real today. Because too many people get caught up in the fantasy of what they hope somebody feels and not the reality of what's going on. The truth is, you don't know who a man really is until after he's gotten what he wanted. Before that, he's smooth, he's charming, he's attentive, he's got all the right words. But once he's been intimate with you, that's when his true thoughts start showing. That's when you find out whether he sees you as a priority or just a pastime. A lot of people want to know what goes on in a man's mind after he has slept with a woman, and the truth is it's not as simple as many think. A man's thoughts after that moment reveal a lot about who he is, what his intentions are, and how he truly feels. Some men will wake up with respect, responsibility, and a desire to continue building something meaningful. Others will wake up with regret, detachment, or even confusion because they never had real intentions to begin with. That's why it's important to understand what's happening in his head, because it tells you exactly what you need to know about where the relationship is headed. The first thing that runs through a man's mind is whether or not he truly values the woman he just shared that intimacy with. If he sees her as someone special, that moment deepens his respect and his feelings. He feels closer, more protective, more serious about his role in her life. But if he didn't have good intentions, if he just wanted the physical without the emotional, then his thoughts shift to distance, to moving away, or to finding an excuse not to be accountable. And you'll notice it right away in how he behaves afterward, whether he checks on you, whether he's affectionate, whether he talks about the future, or whether he suddenly grows cold. Another powerful thought that comes into a man's mind is responsibility. When a man is serious about a woman, intimacy doesn't just satisfy him. It puts a weight on his shoulders. He starts thinking, I have to protect her heart. I have to be better for her. I can't play games with her emotions. But when he's not serious, he thinks the opposite. He's only concerned with himself. He starts figuring out how to pull back, how to avoid conversations, how to shift blame, how to make sure he doesn't look like the bad guy. That difference right there will tell you who you're really dealing with. Man also thinks about how the woman views herself. If she respects herself, if she holds standards, if she's not easily impressed, he knows he has to step up his game. But if she shows him through her actions that she doesn't demand more, then he'll think he can get away with less. That's the hard truth. Men think about what you allow and they adjust themselves based on it. If you demand respect, a real man will rise up to give it. If you accept excuses, a selfish man will hand them out freely. In those quiet moments after intimacy, men also think about their options. This doesn't always mean cheating or disloyalty, but men do evaluate where they stand. A man who loves you will think, this is the woman I want to be with. I don't need anyone else. A man who doesn't love you will think, I got what I wanted, but let me see what else is out there. His level of commitment is revealed in that moment. And even though he might not say it out loud, his actions will tell you everything. Another thought that comes to a man is whether this moment changes the relationship. Does he see her as his partner now, someone to build with? Or does he still see her as temporary, someone who filled a space but won't stay for long? That thought shapes the next days and weeks. If he's serious, he'll lean in. More calls, more plans, more effort. If he's not, he'll lean out. Less communication, more excuses, more distance. And the last major thought a man has is about himself. After intimacy, a man evaluates whether he feels proud of his choices or ashamed of them. If he knows he handled things with honesty, respect, and genuine care, then he feels good about himself. But if he knows he played with her emotions, lied about his intentions, or used her for the moment, then deep down, even if he hides it, he feels that guilt, because a man knows when he's done right and when he's done wrong, and it eventually shows in the way he treats her afterward. That's why understanding what a man thinks after he has slept with you is so important. It's not about guessing or overanalyzing his silence. It's about watching his behavior and recognizing that his thoughts will always show themselves in his actions. If he respects you, you'll feel it. If he values you, he'll prove it. And if he doesn't, no amount of words will cover up the truth. When a man has slept with a woman, his thoughts afterward are a direct reflection of what his true intentions were before it even happened. Intimacy has a way of bringing out the truth that was already in his heart. Some men walk away from that moment feeling grateful, connected, and ready to deepen the bond, while others walk away feeling restless, detached, or already planning their exit. What he thinks after that moment reveals the reality of how he sees the woman and where he sees the relationship going. That's why it's crucial to understand this, because it tells you whether you are dealing with a man who wants to invest or a man who only wanted to indulge. One of the first things on a man's mind after intimacy is whether he feels fulfilled emotionally or just physically. If he genuinely cares, he's not just thinking about himself. He's thinking about her comfort, her feelings, her well-being. He wonders if she feels safe with him, if she feels appreciated, if she feels respected. That's a man who understands that intimacy carries weight. But if he doesn't care, his thoughts are shallow. He thinks only about the physical satisfaction and starts detaching the moment the act is over. You can spot the difference quickly, because the man who values you will stay present, attentive, and warm, while the man who doesn't will go cold, distant, and distracted. He's an MOS. Another thought a man has after that moment is whether he now has to rise to a higher standard in the relationship. For some men, sleeping with a woman is a milestone that makes them take her more seriously. They start thinking about consistency, responsibility, and commitment. They know this is not the time to play games. But for other men, the opposite happens. Instead of stepping up, they start pulling back. They think, I've already gotten what I wanted, so I don't have to try as hard anymore. That's when the energy shifts. The phone calls slow down, the excuses pile up, and the interest fade. Men also think about how their actions reflect on the woman's value in their eyes. A man who respects her will feel a deeper level of connection after intimacy, because he knows he's sharing something with someone valuable, not just anyone. He thinks about her as a priority, as someone he wants to protect and honor. But a man without real intentions might think about her differently. He may not respect her in the same way because in his mind, the intimacy wasn't tied to building anything serious. That doesn't mean the woman did anything wrong. It means his mindset was wrong from the start. A man's thoughts are also influenced by how he perceives the boundaries that were set. If she showed him that she values herself, that she doesn't just give access without expecting commitment, then he thinks, I need to make sure I rise to meet her standards. But if she allowed the situation without clarity, without expectations, then the wrong type of man will think, I don't owe her more than this. That's why boundaries are powerful. They shape the way a man thinks about you after intimacy. Another thing that runs through a man's mind is whether he feels pride or regret. If he's truly interested and his intentions are real, he feels proud. He feels like he's honored someone valuable. But if he wasn't honest with her, if he knows deep down he had no plans for the future, then regret sets in. He might not show it, but it gnaws at him. And when a man feels that guilt, it comes out in his behavior. He becomes inconsistent, short-tempered, or absent because deep down he knows he wasn't truthful about his motives. Lastly, a man thinks about the future. Does this change the way he sees her? Does this make him want to build more, to invest, to plan? Or does it make him feel like the relationship has already peaked? A serious man thinks forward. He sees family, commitment, growth. A selfish man thinks backward. He sees only what he has already taken. That's why the period after intimacy is such a revealing time. His thoughts translate into his actions, and his actions reveal the truth about how he feels. When a man has slept with a woman, what he thinks afterward is not random. It's shaped by his character, his intentions, and how he truly views the relationship. The truth is, intimacy is not just physical. It magnifies what's already in a man's heart. If he came into the situation with real feelings, those feelings grow deeper afterward. If he came into it with selfish motives, then afterward his thoughts are about how to create distance. That moment strips away all the pretending and shows you exactly who he really is. One of the first things a man thinks about is whether he sees her as someone he wants to keep or someone he just wanted to experience. If he values her, that intimacy makes him feel closer, more protective, more invested. He thinks about her not just in that moment, but in the days and weeks that follow. He starts considering how to nurture the bond, how to show her consistency, how to make her feel secure. But if he doesn't value her, then he's already moving on in his mind. He's already plotting how to avoid accountability, how to pull back without looking guilty, how to minimize his involvement. Man also reflects on what the intimacy means for the relationship. A committed man thinks, this is confirmation. I want to take her seriously. I want to move forward with her. I want to give her my best. His thoughts are about the future, about building trust and stability. But a man who only wanted the physical sees it as the finish line. He thinks, I got what I wanted. Now I don't have to put in the same effort. That's when you notice him losing interest, becoming distant, or making excuses. His thoughts after that moment tell you clearly if he's in it for love or for convenience. Another powerful thought that surfaces in a man's mind is about respect. A man who respects a woman sees intimacy as a bond that deserves care. He doesn't take it lightly. He thinks about how to protect her emotions and prove that she can trust him. But if a man doesn't respect her, his thoughts are careless. He thinks about his next move, about keeping his options open, about how quickly he can move on to someone else. Respect or lack of it is revealed instantly by how he behaves after the fact. A man also considers what her standards told him. If she showed him through her actions that she values herself and expects him to meet her at that level, he thinks, I have to keep showing up right. He knows he can't get by with laziness or disrespect, but if she made it easy for him without any expectation of commitment, then the wrong kind of man will think, I don't have to do more. Men adjust themselves according to the standards set before them. That's why boundaries are not just rules, they are messages about how you expect to be treated. After intimacy, men also think about whether they feel proud or conflicted. A man with good intentions feels proud, not because of conquest, but because he knows he has honored someone important to him. He feels a stronger sense of responsibility. But a man who wasn't honest feels conflicted. He knows deep down that he wasn't truthful, that he may have led her on, and that guilt lingers. Even if he hides it, that conflict shows up in his behavior through inconsistency, detachment, or avoidance. His inner thoughts will leak into his outer actions. Finally, men think about whether this moment changes the trajectory of the relationship. For a serious man, intimacy is not an ending, but a beginning. He thinks about deepening trust, making bigger plans, being more reliable. For a selfish man, intimacy marks the peak of the relationship. He thinks, this is as far as I want to go, and slowly detaches. That difference is what women have to pay attention to. The man who invests more afterward is the one who's real, and the man who withdraws is the one who never planned to stay. His thoughts after that moment are the clearest indicator of his truth. When a man has slept with a woman, what runs through his mind afterward often says more about him than anything he could ever tell her directly. Intimacy is powerful, and it has a way of exposing whether a man is genuine or pretending. Some men will walk away from that moment feeling more connected, more determined to step up, while others will walk away already thinking of how to distance themselves. That contrast is why it's so important to understand the thoughts that cross his mind, because they are the clearest reflection of his true character. The first thought a man has is whether he truly values the woman he just shared that intimacy with. If he does, he feels honored by the experience and his respect for her grows. He starts thinking about how to keep her close, how to make sure she knows she is cared for, how to prove that he sees her as more than just the moment. But if he doesn't value her, his thoughts shift toward excuses and distance. He may already be thinking about how not to call, how to make himself less available, or how to avoid any conversation about commitment. Avoiding and commitment. Another thought that weighs heavily on a man afterward is responsibility. A man who is serious about a woman thinks, now I have to make sure I take care of her heart. I can't let her down. I can't play games with this. That sense of duty shows up in how he treats her, because he knows intimacy creates an emotional bond that deserves to be honored. But a man who isn't serious thinks the opposite. He sees no obligation. His thoughts are only about himself, his freedom, his convenience, his next move. He thinks about how to protect his own space instead of protecting her feelings. That selfish mindset becomes clear very quickly after the act is done. Men also think about what this means for the relationship. A man who is invested sees intimacy as a step forward. He starts thinking about how to nurture the connection, how to spend more time together, how to plan for the future. He sees it as an opportunity to build trust. But a man who was never invested sees it as the finish line. His thoughts are about slowing down, pulling back, or even exiting altogether. To him, intimacy was a goal, not a gateway. His behavior afterward will reveal whether he saw the moment as a bond or a conquest. Another thing that enters a man's mind is how the woman carries herself. If she has strong standards, if she clearly values herself, his thoughts adjust accordingly. He thinks, I can't play with her. I have to step up my game. But if she shows through her actions that she doesn't demand respect, then the wrong kind of man thinks, I don't have to put in any more effort. Men evaluate what they can and cannot get away with, and their thoughts reflect what they believe a woman will tolerate. That's why self-respect matters. It shapes the way a man processes the experience. After intimacy, a man also thinks about his own sense of pride. If he handled the situation with honesty, if his intentions were pure, then his thoughts are filled with peace. He feels confident knowing he treated her right. But if he lied, if he pretended, if he manipulated her just to get what he wanted, then his thoughts carry guilt. He might try to hide it, but guilt eats at him. He becomes restless, distant, or inconsistent because deep down he knows he didn't live up to what a real man should be. His actions in the days that follow are simply a reflection of those conflicted thoughts. Finally, a man thinks about whether this moment makes him want to grow or retreat. For a genuine man, intimacy inspires him to lean in closer. He wants to invest more, prove himself more, love harder. For a selfish man, intimacy signals that he has reached the limit of what he wanted. He starts thinking about how to ease out of the relationship without looking like the villain. That contrast reveals everything. A man's thoughts after he has slept with a woman are never random. They are the blueprint of his intentions, and those intentions always show up in his behavior. After a man has slept with a woman, his thoughts are often the mirror of his true character and intentions. Some men come out of that moment feeling more connected, feeling like they need to step up and prove themselves worthy. They start thinking about how to be consistent, how to make her feel secure, how to honor what just happened. They understand that intimacy carries weight, and their thoughts reflect the seriousness of that responsibility. But other men come out of the same moment with a completely different mindset. They may already be thinking about how to create space, how to avoid conversations, or how to keep things casual when the woman may be hoping for more. One thing men definitely think about is whether this moment changes how they see the woman. A man with genuine feelings will think about her more deeply. He sees her as a priority, as someone worth investing in. His thoughts are about building trust and closeness. But if a man had shallow intentions, he thinks about her less. To him, the moment was the peak of the interaction, not the beginning of something stronger. That's why some men grow warmer afterward and others grow colder. Men also think about the role they now have to play. The right man thinks, I need to protect her emotions. I need to be honest with her. I need to treat her like she matters. His sense of duty rises after intimacy. But the wrong man feels no responsibility at all. His thoughts are only about himself, his freedom, his next move, his convenience. He doesn't think about her heart, only about how to protect his own comfort. Another thought that goes through a man's mind is pride or regret. A man who has been honest feels proud because he knows he honored her and himself. But a man who is pretending feels regret and guilt. Even if he tries to hide it, that guilt leaks out in his actions. He becomes inconsistent, detached, or dismissive because deep down he knows he was never genuine. At the end of the day, what a man thinks after intimacy will always be revealed in how he treats her. If his thoughts are about respect, she'll feel it. If his thoughts are about escape, she'll feel that too. A man's behavior afterward is simply his thoughts turned into actions. When a man has slept with a woman, his thoughts afterwards separate the ones who are real from the ones who are playing games. A genuine man doesn't see intimacy as the finish line. He sees it as a starting point to something deeper. His thoughts are about how to take better care of her heart, how to show up consistently, and how to prove that she can trust him with both her body and her emotion. He understands that intimacy creates a bond, and his mind is on how to strengthen that bond, not break it. But for a man who never had real intentions, his thoughts are completely different. The moment the physical part is over, his mind begins pulling away. He thinks about how not to get too attached, how to keep from making promises, or how to make sure she doesn't expect more than he's willing to give. His thoughts aren't on her feelings, they're on protecting his freedom. That's why his behavior changes so quickly afterward. He may stop calling, stop showing affection, or stop making plans because in his mind, he's already decided not to invest further. A man also thinks about what her standards mean for the future. If she has carried herself with respect, and made it clear she expects honesty and effort, he thinks, I have to keep proving myself to her. That makes him want to rise up and meet her expectations. But if she didn't demand much from him, then the wrong type of man will think, I don't need to put in more. A man's thoughts after intimacy often reflect what he believes he can get away with, and that's why boundaries matter so much. Another powerful thought is about himself. A man knows when he has handled the situation with integrity and when he hasn't. If he was honest and genuine, his thoughts are calm. He feels good about himself. But if he lied or misled her, guilt creeps in. Even if he doesn't admit it, that guilt shows in how he withdraws, avoids responsibility, or blames her. And at the end of the day, what a man thinks after intimacy tells you everything. His words may confuse you, but his actions will not. A man's true thoughts will always show up in how he treats you after the moment is over.